Hello and welcome back to some more Assetto Corsa Competizione. It's a game I played quite a lot in 2020, not so much in 2021, especially not the console version. That is what I am on today, and the reason for that is the British GT DLC just launched. Now, if you're thinking, what? No, that launched a while ago. Well, yes, it launched in February on Steam, but the consoles have only just got it. So let's take a look at what we get in the pack and if it's worth buying. Now, as part of this pack, you will be getting 70 new drivers. They are, of course, all from the British GT Championship, and I certainly don't want to upset anyone that's a die-hard British GT Championship fan, but personally, I don't really care about that. You will also get 40 new liveries. This might be of interest to some people. Maybe you're bored of the liveries that came with the game. Perhaps the custom ones aren't good enough. 40 more to choose from, that's always good. It is worth mentioning that these 70 drivers and 40 liveries are from 2019, the 2019 championship. So I don't know why they're a couple of years old. Maybe 2020 didn't happen. Perhaps I should have looked up that before the video started. Either way, let's move on from those details. I don't think that's why most of you are going to be paying for this. It is also worth mentioning before I get into the tracks that come with this pack, which is the real meat, I think, of the DLC. They have given you as well the ability to have a full championship. So if you go to championship, new season, you can flick there through the different ones. British GT Championship is one of them. And you can have either a custom setup or the sprint setup, as well as all the other seasons. So they do include that in the game, which is great. Right, so moving on to what cars you get as part of this pack. And the answer is none. So if there was any cars in the 2019 Championship that are not in ACC and you thought maybe they'd be added into the game, they are not. So you will see now up the top I can select next to the GT Challenge, the GT4 European Series, there is now the British GT Championship. And in fact, if I go and have a look at the teams involved, there are all the cars available. So you do have the Porsche Cup car, you've got the Porsche AMG, McLaren, Lambo, Beamer, Bentley, and the Aston. You are missing, of course, the Nissan, and you can see that there are some GT4s there as well, which can be part of it. And I won't go through all the teams for obvious reasons, but primarily what you get is the tracks. So you can see down the bottom here, you got Alton Park, you get the Snesterton Circuit, and Donnington Park. So personally, I really like Donnington. It's a really cool track. I loved it due to motorcycle racing, so I think it's going to be great. And the other two are also quite fun. Not tracks I know particularly well. I did do a live stream earlier this week, tested the tracks out. One of them in particular is absolutely mental, but let's jump in, let's do a lap, and let's see how they are. Okay, so let's start off with Donnington. It is a pretty awesome circuit, and I think there's going to be a lot of good racing had here. I actually grew up watching a lot of motorbike racing, predominantly the MotoGP and World Superbikes. The World Superbikes did always come to Donnington. It was a really good track to watch. I always wanted to do a track day here, especially this downhill section, holding it flat. That corner gets a bit sketchy when it's wet, don't worry about that. Then you got to wash all the pace off into a corner that's sort of deceptively sharp. You feel like you want to hit it pretty hard, but you don't have to wash the pace off. You work your way back up the hill and you get some off-cambered right-handers at the top, which is so easy to fall off the track then. And ignore my lap time, it's not very good. I've got very little experience here and haven't done a lot of practice. That's another off-camber right-hander. So you will have to excuse my lap times, but I just want to give you a bit of a look, see what it looks like. Now, for context, I am doing this on a PlayStation 5, so if you're on a standard PS4, I think we're all aware you're going to be getting a lot less frames, because I'm led to believe that the version you get on the PlayStation 5 is the same as the PS4 Pro version, which means a few more pixels, slightly better graphics, and a better frame rate. I mean, to be fair, it does hold a pretty solid 60 FPS, but at least that's what it feels like in comparison to the standard one. I don't have any real numbers on that, but it does look a lot smoother on PS5. And that is a lap of Donnington. And next up we have the Snesterton Circuit. Now, I don't think I have ever raced at Snesterton before. I don't recall using it on any other racing sim or racing game. I don't know the track at all, which is why I just made an absolute dog's breakfast of Turn 1. But it just kind of is a big racetrack plonked in the middle of a flat paddock. There's not a lot of undulations here to contend with. It actually reminds me, for some reason, of a bit of an Australian circuit. It's wide, but not proper wide, not Formula 1 track wide. But it's wide enough to pass and go too wide and all the rest. It has a pretty big blend of corners. You've kind of got your high speed, fast sort of bends. You've got your sharper hairpins, as well as a couple of weird... It feels like you'd learn the track quite quickly. But I think there's quite a lot of nuances to it, and I'd imagine that there's a surprising difference between someone who's good at this track and someone who's great at this track. There's a couple of weird corners on it, which you do wonder why, when it was obviously just plonked in the middle of a paddock. Here is one of them. So you can see the actual braking zone, and I'm no good at this. The braking zone is around a corner. Then you've kind of got to straighten the car up, slam the brakes on, wash the pace off for a really sharp kink. Followed by, I've actually got through it okay that time, there's a weird camber mid-corner there. That can catch you out and bounce you off, and this is the next weird corner. So it's, are you accelerating, are you braking? You're kind of doing both, followed by heavy braking down the Turn 1 for the final little kink thing. It's a weird track. I'm not sure what I think of it. I think it's okay, I need to learn it, but that's Snesterton. And finally we have what is both my favourite and probably my least favourite track in this pack. It is Alton Park. And this track, honestly, is absolutely batshit crazy. There is barely a straight piece of track on the entire thing. It is bumpy as hell. There are off-camber corners with very bumpy exits as you're trying to get on the throttle. It's narrow. The track itself, I mean, look at it. You're going to have a hell of a lot of difficulty. I think the track itself is really fun, which is why it's my favourite. It is a very unique, it is interesting, it's wild, it's crazy. It's one of the most exciting tracks I think you'll race on in Assetto Corsa Competizione. You can see just how messy I am under brakes. I mean, sure, you could soften the suspension off, and I think you'd have to. Here's one of the only sections of track where I think an overtaking manoeuvre may actually be a legitimate possibility. And even so, you've got to be careful, because you exit all excited. You have another off-camber corner that's sort of blind if you're on board. It might not be so bad if you're from bonnet view, but this whole section around the back here, I mean, have a look at how narrow it gets there. Off-camber again as you try and arrest the speed, blind over the crest. You have to know exactly where you're going. And finally, another spot that could be used as an overtaking, but man, it is easy to run wide. Totally blind up and over the crest. And finally, around to the front bend. Anyway, that is a track, that is a lap of Alton. And it is pretty insane. I do genuinely enjoy it. But a race would be hectic. Maybe if it was a fun race with your mates, it might be okay. But as a location for a legitimate championship round, it'd be very difficult. It's going to come down to qualifying. Anyway, that is the pack. That is what you get across this DLC. Is it worth purchasing? Well, I think I had a slight, like a 10% special from the PlayStation Plus subscription, gave me 10% discount. Cost me around about $15 Australian. Now, when you think that a single iRacing track costs $14.95, and they're freedom dollars, so that's probably nearly $20 Australian for a single track. The fact that you get 3 brand new tracks in this DLC says it's probably worth getting if you enjoy ACC. That's a topic for a whole nother day, as is ACC on console versus the PC. But anyway, that's everything I've got to say. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. Please do leave a like if you did. Hit subscribe if you're new. And I look forward to talking to you next time. But for now, it's goodbye.